have you heard of the bean soup theory? It's pretty big on TikTok. Well, it's big. It's widely cited, I think is the word, on TikTok. I've seen it discussed on YouTube and other platforms, but it's primarily tossed around on TikTok, and it originates on TikTok. And the story goes, for those who don't know, this one lady made a bean soup video, a recipe on how to make bean soup. Someone then comments on said video, what if I don't like beans? What can I replace the beans with? You know, in the bean soup recipe, right? To which everyone in the comments is like, maybe you should just find a different recipe, you know? And thus the bean soup theory was born, which basically states, is with some variation, that people on the internet are obsessed with what about me-isms, you know? That instead of simply looking at this video of bean soup and realizing, hey, this might not be for me. If I want soup, maybe I should find a different recipe. Instead, they will demand of the creator, what about me? You need to make this palatable for me, right? And the reason I'm bringing up the bean soup theory, this isn't a video about the bean soup theory, but the reason I'm bringing it up is I think I recently discovered the opposite of it. You see, on TikTok, shameless plug, I made a video. It was about audiobooks, because I'm currently listening to an audiobook where I love the plot. I cannot stand the narrator's voice, though, you know, personal preference. And I made a TikTok kind of talking about that, to which someone just commented, just read books. Can you not read books? First of all, I do read physical books, but also I travel a lot. And because of that, I can't read as much as I'd like to when I'm in the car driving, because that's not conducive to non-distracted driving. So I listen to audiobooks, you know? I do both. This guy's assuming I don't do both. Just read audiobooks. And everyone in the comments, like, I didn't see the comment for a while, so people commented on that, being like, well, hey man, some people, like, for one reason or another, really can't read books that well due to attention problems, due to their schedule. And again, mind you, I do read physical books, but people are just being defensive, and I appreciate all those people, right? And I did later comment, dude, I do both. I read books and I listen to audiobooks. But he keeps on responding to these videos, these comments of people, and many people being personal about it, being like, hey, I can't really read books that well, and I use audiobooks because of certain disorders and certain stuff. And this guy basically being like, you should overcome that. You can overcome that. I know you can. And first of all, no, you don't. You don't know what people can and can't do. You're not them just because you can do something. And this guy, basically, I feel like, achieved the opposite of bean soup theory. Instead of demanding other people make things palatable for him, he's demanding other people make something palatable for them because he thinks they should. You know, which I think is funny. And also, I've seen this sentiment raised a lot about audiobooks. When people talk about audiobooks, especially if they're voicing a complaint about a certain audiobook like I was, whether it's the narration, whether it's maybe the language doesn't translate to a narrative that well. Like, I hear this a lot with audiobooks for nonfiction, where people are like, ooh, this doesn't really get read to me that well as much as a book with a narrative would. People will clamor to the comments to be like, well, then you should read it. You should read it. Why aren't you reading it? Right? And for example, there are many people like me who do both read books and listen to audiobooks. And I think, and there are also other people that physically, for one reason or another, have a lot of difficulty reading books. And they still want to consume the narrative, so they will listen to audiobooks. All these things are valid. Yet there is this constant discourse on, is it viable to listen to audiobooks, which is what I want to talk about. Why are we so, not we as in me, why is there a large subset of the reading community that is so against audiobooks as a concept? Now, before we continue, that was a pretty long-winded opening, so let me give my little spiel real quick. My name is Robin. I go by The Eclectus on TikTok, on YouTube, on Tumblr. I have a Twitch which is The Eclectic's Familiar. If I'm being frank, if you want to find me somewhere, check the link tree in the bio. But let's talk about audiobooks. Now, audiobooks have really blown up. And they keep on getting bigger as they get more accessible. Places like Spotify have started offering audiobooks. There are things like Audible that are these subscription services for them. Even, and I recommend, Libby, where you can listen to a lot of audiobooks for free if you have a library card. Now, a lot of people love audiobooks. I like audiobooks. I personally prefer reading a book, but there are some books that, hey, I don't really want to spend money on, and I can't find in my library, but I can find the audiobook on Spotify, on Libby, on XYZ. So that, for me, is a big reason I like audiobooks. Also, I travel a lot. I'm not home during the week. And a lot of places I go to are 2 to 3 hours away, if not more. And I love listening to music, but sometimes, again, for those 2-3 hour drives, you kind of get bored of music. Audiobooks, podcasts, audio media, it's a great way for me to listen to narratives, But I think a big problem is a lot of people who are firm believers that you must read a book physically to count. They see reading a book as a rite of passage, right? And I think this is true for a lot of hobbies. There are people who think if you're not doing it a certain way, typically what is considered the hardest way or the real way, that you're not doing it at all, right? Because I was actually having a discussion with someone. We were talking about our Goodreads goals. And this person was talking to me, and they were like, well, Robin, I have this friend who claims to have read 30 books this year. I know half of those at least were audiobooks. I'm like, well, yeah, but they count it as reading. So is there a Goodreads? They're like, yeah, but I don't count that as reading, and a lot of people don't. To which I said, who cares? Dude, who cares? They count that as reading. They count that towards their goal. They're not going off of your metric, man. And I think that's where the problem really does arise, is a lot of people assume that there is this objective metric of what's considered for completing a book. And people who listen to audiobooks, most of them don't really consider it having physically read the book. They're not going to be like, oh, this is the same. But they still find value in it. People don't just read books to say they read books. Sure, some people do. And I think that is, again, I'm no one to judge. Personally, for me, I kind of think that's the wrong way of going about it. But if you're doing something just to say you did it, and you get no enjoyment out of it, people do things because they get enjoyment out of it. They get enjoyment out of the stories, out of the characters, out of the topics of the book. And audiobooks are a way of doing that. Heck, there are some books that I did not like reading, but then I listened to the audiobook because I wanted to talk about the book and I hadn't read it in a while and I wasn't about to read it again. I'm like, man, the narrator's doing a banging job. And yeah, people are just obsessed with this like, believing that their way of logging their media, of logging their progress is objective. Because I personally, I count my audiobooks towards my Goodreads goal, but I also kind of mark down, I want to physically read this many books at a bare minimum. As I like doing both, because one thing I like about reading is it forces me to not do anything else. It forces me to lock in. Because audiobooks, one problem I run into is my mind will wander, and I'll be listening to them while playing video games, or while cooking, or while driving. And I'll realize, oh crap, I just missed the past 20 minutes because I was not thinking about it. I gotta rewind the book. But I think it's important for us to understand that at the end of the day, objectivity in terms of logging our progress does not exist. Right? It doesn't. Especially, listen, I'm an adult. You're probably an adult. I hope you're an adult. You don't have someone rewarding you for a job well done reading or doing reading the right way except for you. People don't care if you think the way that they interact with books is wrong. they're not going to stop doing it. So what's the point? You know? What's the point of being like, you're doing that wrong? Why would you listen to audiobooks? Don't you know that I read more than you? Dude, who cares? Audiobooks have not put paperback books into the ground, and quite frankly, they won't. If anything, digital books and like Kindles pose a bigger threat. And if you think that your hobby is at threat, that being reading, and that threat's coming from people listening to audiobooks, I personally believe that you are sorely mistaken. Amazon poses a big threat to physical media, such as paperback books, not audiobooks. And sure, Amazon offers audiobooks, but let's not let's not mismark the point. That does not sound eloquent out of my mouth, man. I am tripping over myself. But back on point. If you don't want to listen to audiobooks, don't. It's that simple. If you personally think listening to an audiobook does not count towards your progress, towards your reading goals, cool, don't count it towards your own reading goals. But if someone's goal includes audiobooks, or hell, if someone's book goal only includes audiobooks, what is really the problem there? How does that affect you and your goals? It doesn't make your goals any lesser. It doesn't make your goals any greater. It doesn't affect your goals, and it shouldn't. And if you're letting that affect your goals or how you view reading as a medium, I'd want you to reflect on why. But that's just my opinion. Let's just wrap this all up in a nice little bow. 1 sentence summary, 2 sentence summary. I personally believe that many people who try to diminish the achievement of reading through the use of audiobooks and who deem audiobooks as not actually interacting with the book in a meaningful way do so because they personally themselves do not view that towards their goals, and as such try to project that onto other people's goals and believe that they know what should and should not be counted as reading. But what do you think? Do you listen to audiobooks? Do you not listen to audiobooks? And where do you fall on the audiobooks counting as reading discussion? That's all I have for today. I want you to take care of yourself now, okay?